Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Directions Live Online. My name is Mary, and I will be your host for today's session. So, it's that time of the year. It's UC season, or it kind of was. Today's topic is Beyond the Map, Insights from the 2025 Esri UC. So, Esri's annual UC, or User Conference, for those of you who are new to the geospatial nerddom, it took place in San Diego from the 13th to the 17th of July this year. And this is the biggest GIS conference in the world. And today we're joined by two of my amazing colleagues who were lucky enough to be there on the ground. So here with us to talk tech and insights from the 2025 Esri UC are Amy Barnes and Linda Skoog. Now, neither of which I will be able to do justice introducing in the 30 seconds or so that I have, but here goes nothing. Amy is our configuration engineering lead, and she's based out of Melbourne. Seasoned GIS expert, she is no stranger to many of you due to her inspiring and amazing maps and apps and general carto wizardry, and is a passionate advocate of the power of GIS and innovation in the space. Linda is a senior consultant in the solution engineering dream team with a particular focus on all things imagery and 20 plus years in her back pocket of global geospatial experience. She too is dedicated to those innovative technological solutions. Amy, Linda, how are you both?
Really good, thanks. Thank you. It's great to be here today, and what an introduction, I must admit. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. How are you,
Yeah,
Amy?
good, thank you. I'm very excited for today's session. Thanks for hosting this.
No worries. Okay, so I'm going to kick it off a little differently today to our usual sessions. So before we jump into that fabulous tech content that you've put together for us, I'd love an opportunity up front to get across some key takeaways or insights that you gained from actually being there on the ground among your GIS peers. Any aha moments, any light up moments, any very geeky moments? Linda, do you want to kick off?
Definitely. I think there were, for me, a lot of woohoo moments instead of aha moments. And, to start with at the plenary, there was a very strong focus on imagery. And I think it's the first time this year that I've really seen that presented at imagery. And I did geek out on the mention of an upcoming release that's coming, not quite ready, but will be coming, which is Gaussian splats. But I think, yeah, the best thing of all is definitely being there in person. I got to meet in person people that I've worked with for years, but not just here at Esri, but in a lot of my previous roles, and being able to meet them and have direct conversations and just foster that network. So that I've brought all of that back now with me is definitely a very strong bonus. What about you, Amy?
Yeah, so pretty much the same thing. And I can confirm I did hear the woohoos from Linda a few seats over at the January. Maybe
I'll
you
have to
can hear
listen
it
back to the
recording.
recordings.
You'll have to. But it's exactly the same sentiment. There's, 20,000 people all in the same room, packed into that plenary session. It's amazing to sit next to your peers from across the pond and multiple different countries. And it's really just awe-inspiring, and you can start conversations without having to start that dreaded conversation of, oh, what do you do? That can really be skipped, and I think a lot of people enjoy that. You just get into it, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And one of my highlights as well, I mean, there's many, but one of them is the people. Like, a lot of the content is recorded and you can watch it virtually, but it's the people who attend, not just the Esri staff or Esri distributor staff like ourselves. It's also the other attendees. Everyone has their own skill sets, and it's great to have those conversations with anyone. We're all specialists, and it's just inspiring to see how everyone all works together. I mean, we're all geogeeks, yeah? So all of us with that passion and curiosity, which brings us here today as well.
Yeah.
And
That's
lastly, as well, there is the theme this year was integrating everything everywhere, and I will mention that today a bit as well. It's really exciting that we're starting to look at the roadmap of applications like Survey 123 and Fill Maps. But before I get into the technical details, you also attended the UC virtually, Mary, and I'm going to put you on the spot here as well. How was your experience?
Thanks for that.
Did you
Yeah,
feel
I
the
knew
from
you.
San Diego?
I knew you guys would do that to me. Like I'll throw it back. I'm gonna throw it at you. Yeah. Look, I did the what they call the digital access, right? So the virtual piece because I was here in Perth, watching it from there. And Look, yeah, I really did enjoy it. I'm up there in the geekdom though, so like I'm invested in just all things geospatial. Doesn't matter the conference. I have a big love. I'm a big proponent of any virtual or digital access to conferences where possible, obviously, right? Especially when it's a scaled one like this, you need to be able to provide the access to people who can't do the very obvious things like travel. It can be difficult to get budget yourself personally if you're going to fork out for it, or even just in your organization to get those, registration fees, accommodation, travel, etc. Not everyone has that facility to do that. So being able to get that digital access is great. And I know then after the conference, it can become very difficult to catch up on what you didn't see, or the public recordings take time to publish, so you're getting further and further away from the attendance piece if you didn't get to go. So it's great to be able to
I
watch
keep diving
live.
back into it, to be honest. I still keep going back into it, even though I was there.
Right, but that's exactly it, right? So you can actually watch it live, or you can dive in afterwards. If you were like me and by day 3 you were like, you know what, I'm not doing the 2 a.m. one, I'll get up for the 3 a.m. one. I can watch that the next morning. That's absolutely fine, because with the digital access, you get the video straight away for the recorded session, as opposed to waiting for the sessions to be published afterwards. So that was fantastic. And essentially for me, it's a head start on actually using that information, those insights, and I get to ask questions during the sessions as well. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I could go on and on and on, but that's enough for me. If you guys want to, after humoring me there for a minute, feel free to jump into the good stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Raj. So without further ado, let's talk about what we're all here for today. So I'd like to focus on talking a bit deeper into what that roadmap is for Survey 123 and what this next generation of this application will incorporate. Spoiler, it's AI. And then we'll take a step back and talk a bit more about what all of this means and what types of AI we're going to see a lot more of in the coming years. So let's dig into my biggest takeaway. Survey 123 is releasing a next-gen application, and this is the mobile application only. So currently what is on your phones is now going to be labeled current generation, or I'm going to label it Survey 123 Classic. And there is a new version that is coming out, and this is built on the latest ArcGIS Maps SDK for .NET. It's great. It is incorporating all of those core mapping libraries that you've seen in Field Maps, as well as ArcGIS Earth. And with this new version, we're getting a lot more really cool capabilities and some of those AI things as well. There is a future retirement that is going to be marked for Survey 123 Classic, or the current generation of your mobile app. And this date hasn't officially been released, but we are estimating it's going to be around Q3 in 2027. So you do have a lot of time. Before then, the current application will still be supported, and you will still get the help that you need should you need it. What you can do now, before this application retires, you can participate in the beta version and provide your feedback. There is a lot of opportunity here to listen to what your feedback is and make those changes before it gets released. And once it is available openly, I would recommend you migrate and you start using this version as soon as possible. And it does depend on the parity, which we'll discuss shortly as well. So once this is out, I would strongly recommend you absolutely just test. It is utterly important that you make sure that before you migrate, every single thing that you're doing in Survey 123 is working. So these status today, most question types are implemented. So that includes your calculations and expressions. It does incorporate your image capture, your base repeat support, and translations. However, not all functionality will be present in the initial release. It is important to note that. So the future state of this, your public beta is out, or shortly will be out. I believe it's October. And the first release is expected early next year. And from that date, there are expected to be quarterly releases until it reaches parity. The cool parts, which I really like, is this is now backed by the calcite design system, which is sort of Esri, in my opinion, is Esri's way of having you look at something and going, oh, that's Esri. So this incorporates all of the really cool buttons, iconography, and all of that stuff that you're familiar with. What this also brings is better accessibility and better situational awareness in your map as well. And there is now also going to be support for bookmarks, layer control, and pop-ups in your maps in Survey 123. So let's see what this new version incorporates with AI. most exciting thing when it comes to AI, in my opinion, is that you can start to use it to improve your workflow in both time and quality. So we can set up questions here to connect AI to use calculations to extract text. You can use computer vision, or what is also called image interpretation, and you can use it to identify and count objects. So in this video, we can see that there is a pavement that is being reported, and with the AI, we can request an assessment of this image. Using computer vision, it has understood that this isn't how a pavement should look, and it gives you the information that you've asked for. Other aspects that we can use AI in is also translations and audio to text. And this is absolutely amazing because not only can you transcribe your audio, it can identify what the language was, and it can summarize that and even translate it back to a different language that you choose. So there is also another type of AI that is incorporated here in Survey 123, and that is the Survey 123 Assistant. Now, this is really great because it is using conversational language that you can use prompts in your Survey 123 to generate a new survey form. So back in the old days, like, hey Diary, or hey me, it's hey ChatGPT or hey AI. Now you can say, please build me a survey of, I need to assess a pavement. If it is broken, assign it to be hazardous. If it is not broken, assign it to be it's okay. If it's anything else, you can assign it that category. And I also need to capture the worker's name, and I need to capture the date. And using that Survey 123 Assistant, it will generate that survey on your behalf, and then you can take it from there and edit it as you need and add more questions or style it up as well. So that's really great. There's a lot more assistance that is coming up, which I know Linda will talk about shortly as well. But before we do that, let's dig a bit deeper and see how this looks in action. So here we can see how we can connect AI into the survey through the calculation component of each question. Under the calculation section, you can opt to extract with the option for Analyze Image. So here we are using conversational prompts as you would with any other AI chatbot to ask what you need. And this is a good area to also define the values for the answers you are looking for. So let's save and run through the survey, and we'll also upload an image of a fire hydrant, and we can see how AI understands the image. So in both questions, we have asked AI to visualize and summarize the image and then classify that image into a category. Let's see what our AI has understood of this image as it is currently busy analyzing. It will do a really good job of identifying aspects of the fire hydrant, and it will even pick up items that we may have ordinarily missed. So this is now saving on time, but also some of the quality where it's identifying components where, I mean, I'm not an expert in fire hydrants, maybe I shouldn't be, but this is helping us in that way as well. So the functionality here of computer vision is absolutely fantastic, but it should always really be taken with a pinch of salt. We are all learning, and so is AI. Computer vision is also being incorporated into our other mobile applications. So in the mid to future term, we're looking at this being incorporated into field maps. And this is bringing both of these applications into the modern era and is bridging some of these parity gaps between the two. So let's see another example of a fire hydrant. This one is in clear need of repair. So let's see if AI thinks the same. I'm going to say it does. I know I've seen the video, but this is a really good distinguishing between two very different types of fire hydrants, but it can clearly identify that this one is identified there's tape, there's water leaking, something's not that right. And using that prompt that you've provided, it's as easy as that. It's now understood that this fire hydrant is in need of repair, and maybe it's even hazardous, and that's saving you on time as well. So Linda, we've spoken now about two types of AI here, briefly on the assistants, but mostly on the Geo AI side. What are your thoughts?
Quite a few, Amy. I think by this point, we all know what AI is. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. But what I would like to take people through is, what came through from UC about why GIS and AI are so powerful, the value that it brings, and the different types of AI in use. We talk about Geo AI, AI assistants, and there's this future AI called agentic AI. I'll also give some examples of what's been recently released during UC. And finally, we'll have a look at whether we can trust AI. I think that's a really big question on everyone's minds. So GIS is already being enhanced by AI. We use it to monitor change and to model change through predictive analysis, enabling us to deliver transformational value. It also sits in the background, improving data capture, providing consistency, and improving productivity and efficiency. Some people have argued that in the imagery space, we've been conducting AI for decades in the form of change detection and analysis. But this traditional analysis based off raster functions and image classification is a bit different to AI. Primarily, as AI learns, it adapts. It can decipher what counts as change and what is just noise. It can understand features in context. I would argue instead that GIS and change detection have paved the way for today's AI, putting us in the ideal position to harness the next generation of intelligent geospatial tools.
Well, Linda, I think it was about 3 years ago. I think I was using AI. Well, I thought it was, right? So back in South Africa, we were looking at informal settlements and they were growing maybe a bit too rapidly for what the tools could pick up and track on. So we were using, what was it called? Deep learning in ArcGIS Pro. Back then, there were the 3 steps. You find the data, you train your model, and then you run your model. And that way we were identifying these informal settlements, which were built out of metal sheeting. So they had that metal roof, and we could identify this is a informal settlement, and it would start to count how many are in the area. But we did sort of hit that hiccup where as soon as someone puts something on their roof, as you do, a tire or a tarp or anything else like that, it would then identify that that is not an informal settlement. And that is, I'm hoping AI is sort of bringing or bridging that gap between the two.
It is. And I think, when you used that model a couple of years ago, it was still a deep learning model. And I think, with the kind of combination now of deep learning and AI, what that brings is the ability to learn. So like you just showed in the fire hydrant picture, the model could tell whether that fire hydrant had been taped up or not. So this is where it will learn, for instance, when it's analyzing those roofs, if someone has had to put a top over their roof because they've had some roof damage, they can still identify that it's a roof, but it might be a damaged roof. So this is the next gen, I guess, of how we're applying it today, and the next models that are available is the ability to learn and put it in context again, and also scale. I think what has particularly changed that I've noticed is just the amount of data that we can now run this across, the volume of data we can use, and definitely how much it's embedded everywhere. And I guess we'll talk about that some more, won't we, Amy? But no, it's a very good point. The difference between sort of image classification, deep learning models, and today's future AI ideas. So thanks for that. So we'll have a look a bit more as well about why we think GIS and AI is so perfect and so perfectly matched. So by combining location and intelligence, we can draw insights from massive spatial data. Like I just said, it really unlocks scale. We can then bring in more analytics and real-time sensors, and also we can learn from this, delivering trends, patterns, and predictions. And it makes us better with more efficient workflows and more accurate data entry, as we just again saw from that fire hydrant example. It's a lot more accurate at capturing information in a consistent way. We can then analyze more data and be more consistent with automation. AI also helps us to make complex geospatial principles and language, not just other languages, but even complex English language, accessible and understandable to everyone. And this helps to deliver a wider impact across any organization or any use case. It essentially decodes complex language and scientific principles to make them understandable by everyone. Not only do I believe that AI brings immense value to ArcGIS, but we saw this a lot at UC. AI is going to be everywhere. In the space of 12 months, it has gone from being talked about to being embedded in workflows. At the UC, one of my favorite presentations that was delivered at the Imagery Summit was presented by Gabriel Ortiz from the government of Cantabria in Spain. They showed extensive use cases for extracting features or insights from imagery with deep learning tools. Also at the plenary, Oricon included vegetation encroachment analysis for the Hume Link project by using LiDAR and AI to automate tree clearance volumetric analytics. There was also endless examples of automated map generation. I think almost every presentation at UC had some representation where this had helped with styling, symbology, and communicating all these, amazing information and ideas that this analytics can draw out. So in the last year, I've spent quite a bit of time in the Geo AI space, as imagery often forms the base layer for a lot of analysis. And there are a lot of new features released at UC that I'm particularly keen to explore, especially as my experience in the imagery provider space has led me to believe like there is a big challenge around clouds. Being able to now remove clouds in imagery is an absolute game changer, not just for imagery suppliers, but think of all that historic content that we could potentially bring back into play, as we can now remove the clouds and bring back more data. Just the other day, I was looking at Landsat and Sentinel imagery across South Australia. I was trying to track the algal bloom and see if what coverage was available. What I found was that quite a bit of the coverage over the time frame that I needed was obscured by clouds. But I'm now going to go back and explore this tool and see if I can enhance my results and have better data access with some of these tools. Also during UC and at another conference I attended recently, super resolution was a hot topic. It directly addresses one of the biggest limitations in imagery, which is spatial resolution. It overcomes sensor and altitude trade-offs, and it will unlock more value from existing datasets. By using SR3, it will also incorporate spectral fidelity, maintaining that critical original pixel value for further downstream analysis. Available through the ArcGIS Living Atlas is a growing library of open source, pre-trained, ready-to-use deep learning models. I started my career over 20 years ago now, digitizing roads and land parcels for the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs in the UK. Today, these models are designed to streamline those workflows by automating tasks such as feature extraction, classification, and object detection. I've used several of these over the last year in solutions, such as Segment Anything for tree counts, and Text SAM to identify objects near a 2,000 kilometer long pipeline. What's new and exciting is the release of models trained against different types of data, such as 3D, point clouds, motion videos, and particularly oriented imagery. I'd like to focus and call out some new releases in particular when working with Geo AI and imagery. The first one is the Model Training Wizard. One of my biggest takeaways from working with deep learning models is many of them have not been trained against Australian data. So expect an amount of retraining to enhance your results. The next big thing I'm really excited to see, or actually talk to, is the language vision models. I can talk a lot, so God help my imagery when I can now start asking it questions directly. And again, this really helps to remove some of those technical language barriers around imagery that you need to work with. And instead, I can just ask it, what do you see? Segment the lake. Classify this into forest, urban, and agriculture. I would really invite all of you to explore how these models enable intuitive image interrogation, zero-shot classification, prompt-based segmentation, text SAM, and so much more. You can combine them with your traditional task-specific models for precision when you need it, or you can just use them for fast, flexible, exploratory analysis. Along with Geo AI, AI assistants bring immense value. They help us to demystify the tech, or particularly the language used in geospatial. Many ArcGIS tools are powerful, but they are complex. By using AI assistance, it lowers the learning curve, making GIS more accessible to non-experts, but also it speeds things up for experts like myself. To be really honest, I haven't had that much interaction with AI assistants as I've been really focused on the geo AI and imagery angle. But I know, Amy, you've had a lot of deep dives into this. What's your favorite AI assistant so far?
So like we've spoken of Server 1 to 3 in this one, and I will make a call out of the app creation as well, which is expanding into dashboards and other experience builder type things. My favorite has to be the coding assistant. So I did not study coding. I studied GIS, which has a fragment of coding, but I'm in no way a specialist in that space. And no matter how much time I spend, which I'm sure is for everyone on this webinar here as well, you don't really know where it ends, right? You might know some of the tools, but I can guarantee no one knows all the tools. But this is sort of where this AI assistant, especially for arcade, will come into play, where using these natural reading human prompts, you can start to say, well, I need to do X, Y, Z, and I need to then output this and make it blue or make it pink or whatever really you're looking for. And that will sort of work through all of the libraries and the tools that are available and give you your arcade prompt or code block back, for which you can use into your pop-ups or your dashboard or your experience builder or anything really where arcade is being used. And that helps bridge that gap of, I don't really know where to start, or I don't know how to do this, or I don't know. None of the
Yeah,
assistants will get you there. And through repetitive use of these assistants, you'll start to pick up trends of, no, this is where they use this tool, or this is how they did that, or this is how you return a hello world string or anything else. So it
yeah,
has to be my
that sounds
favorite
like a
by
really
far.
good place to start. And you're right, like nowadays, we can't be experts in everything. And, we've got to focus on our own jobs and workflows and not also know how to code at times. So I think that's a great place to start. I think I'll check that out myself as well. Thanks. So along with Geo AI and AI assistants, there is also a lot of talk at UC around agentic AI. So this is using AI agents to deliver end-to-end workflows. So how does this really differ from what we're already using? Let's take an example of trying to understand how and where mangroves have declined in Australia over the last 5 years. With Geo AI, we would choose a specialized AI model ourselves, and we would then train this on the geospatial data to run the core analysis. So an example workflow would be we would ingest Landsat or Sentinel-2 imagery, we would apply the deep learning land cover model after first selecting it, and then we would classify the map for mangroves each year. And then we would use the change detection algorithm to flag lost areas. With the AI assistant, it's a little bit different. This is a prompt-based assistant. So this is where we would perhaps ask, which ArcGIS Pro tool can I use for year-to-year vegetation change? And the assistant would respond with, use the change detection wizard with NDVI from your satellite imagery. Here's how to run it. We would then have to prompt it again to say, write a summary paragraph of my findings. And then the assistant would deliver a 150-word summary. It's helpful, but again, you still have to do all the data handling and execution. With agentic AI, you give it the outcome and it figures out all of the steps. It may connect to ArcGIS, Earth Engine, or your data warehouse and then produce outputs. So for instance, I would ask it, give me a 5-page PDF report with 3 web maps showing 5 years of mangrove loss in Australia. The agent would go away, it would source all the imagery across that AOI, it would run the mangrove classification via the Geo AI model that it has selected. It would then perform the change detection and quantify area loss. It would then have to publish my web maps to my ArcGIS Online account. It would then write, format, and review the results in a PDF with maps and methodology. And finally, it would email me the link. So I'm sure you can see from that example that it is incredibly proactive and it takes care of the workflow from end to end. So this really makes me ask even more, how much can we trust this? A stumbling block for many people starting out in the AI space is how much can we trust even installing these packages on our networks and devices? Can our IT have confidence that this new tech isn't going to breach our compliance and regulations for data sovereignty and PII? How much can we trust the results? There's the old GIS adage of rubbish in, rubbish out, and I do think this is even more prevalent with AI. Let's take the cloud removal example I spoke about. What happens in the model? Does it change the pixel? How much can I use the image for downstream raster analytics, such as algal beam extraction, if I change the pixel value? Perhaps is it the best and most viable approach? So whilst you can use AI to fix a problem, can you then use AI to further analyze and extract information? This is where validation is essential. And to know more, such as what a model actually does or what's under the hood, Esri is being as transparent as possible to help you make informed decisions. We do this through our Trust Center website, which I'll go through in more detail. Here we have it, a nice live demo. So we will share all of these links with you following on from this webinar, but this is a great place to start and check out the Trusted AI section of our ArcGIS Trust Center. This is where we review all the different types of AI and we provide detailed information in the form of transparency cards. I've been diving into this and it is really, really useful to understand what some of the security concerns or some of the limitations might be. If we were to have a look at the example that Amy talked us through, the ArcGIS Survey 123 AI Assistant, and have a look at that transparency card, we can immediately see whether it's certified, what standards it can meet, and at what level. We can also understand whether the AI features can be enabled or disabled in that application, and whether we can opt in for AI feedback. Again, this gives people confidence and knowledge about how and when they use it. I also spoke about deep learning models, and there are so many of them in the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. And again, if I was to focus on the example of mangrove classification, there are some really important points to note, such as what was the model trained on? What data was it inferenced against? And then we can also have a look at what were the classes and the outputs. And even better, we have some accuracy metrics. So now we can make an informed decision about how much we can trust this data and the results that we get from it. So that's come a long way. It's not perfect, but I would say that it's definitely a good starting point. But something that really stays with me, and it's a quote from one of our greatest statisticians of this century, a fella called George Box. He very aptly said that all models are wrong, but some are useful. And with that in mind, I will take us through our recap, and I will hope that we've left you with some thoughts about how GIS and AI together are creating more opportunity, the different types of AI that we're already familiar with, but some of the future directions that AI is going to take with agentic AI. And we're also going to review and share with you the ArcGIS Trust Center, and I really encourage you all as well to check that out directly. So thank you all.
Thanks, Linda. And you've got a couple of resources there, I think, as well, which are quite useful. So just in case any of you are interested in the pre-trained models, that first resource, I think, is actually from Vinay and a couple of the team from the AI and the imagery side of things. So they've put together a story map that actually links you out to all the different things, which I found, which was quite cool. The actual geospatial AI content is very good as well. That's from the resources. There's the link to the Trust Center itself. And then get into the early adopter community. Now is the time if you're not, because there's so many things coming up in the AI space and a few other spaces as well, that if you want to jump in and play around with what's coming, have your feedback kind of incorporated, etc. Cannot recommend it more. I have about 20 things on the go at the moment that I'm probably not giving enough time to, but yeah. Linda, if you jump on to the next slide for me there, please, and thank you, because I am going to try and remind everyone that we have time for some questions. Before I do that, I have one observation from the content that you guys put together. My observation of your observations is that it seemed to be very hard to escape AI at the UC. It seemed to be a little bit of everywhere. It's hard to escape it in real life, IRL as well. So it's no surprises there. But I think what came through your content and my kind of digital viewing of the content as well was that it's not just here's a tool, point and shoot, solution, wipe your hands, go. It's the thinking behind the AI that is coming through as well. So having you think about how you're using it, why you're using it, why it's developing the way it is, what it can help you with, what it can't help you with, where it's going, etc. So that was fantastic. And just to see you guys highlight that was quite good as well, which means that what came across digitally came across on the ground as well. All right. So again, in a moment, we will jump into the questions that have come through. A reminder, you still have time. We have a few more minutes on the clock, so you can submit your questions now and during the Q&A session. So just open the question panel, type your questions, click send. And to give you a moment to do that, so you have one more minute to do that while we're doing this, I'd like to highlight one more thing from this year's UC. So every year, projects from all over the world are nominated for something called a Special Achievement in GIS Award, or the SAG Awards. So Linda, if you want to jump on there. Yeah, thank you. So the SAG Awards. And this year, something like 197 projects, don't quote me on that, I think it was approximately that, were selected to receive a prize. And that's over 100,000 organizations, possibly. So 197 projects out of that's pretty good. And these included projects from all across our region. So that includes ones from Australia, so BHP and their Mind Terrain Digital Twin project, Geoscience Australia and the Digital Atlas of Australia. In Malaysia, we had Isolangor and the D15 Plus project. We had the Ministry of Health in Malaysia, so that's KKM. We had the SCDF in Singapore, so that's the Singapore Civil Defence Force. And again, so many more from Japan, New Zealand, etc. And I've had the honor of seeing many of these particular projects presented by some of these very people in these pictures. And the passion, the dedication, the continuing drive to evolve and innovate and make an impact, I'm telling you, refills my cup every time. So huge congratulations to each of these people. Very well deserved. And I cannot recommend more going to check out the full list of the winners, their projects, see what they're doing, see what's in your space, use the URL or the QR code. But that is absolutely enough gushing from me. Let's jump into those questions that have come through. Let me grab them here. Okay, cool. So I'm going to throw a question first, because why not? I have the opportunity. Lots of AI content, as I said, but what about the beginners crew, the dabblers, the people who are in the game a long time, but are worrying about keeping up to speed or getting up to speed? Was there anything useful in the content on the ground about where they can jump in to just figure out where they can start or where should they start? So Linda, have you anything that might be useful?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no bad place to start. There's never no wrong place to start. I'll just jump in. And it can be a bit daunting sometimes with such a blank canvas, and I've had that quite a lot. But maybe just start with like something as simple as ChatGPT, just to get familiar with it. And then we've got the Living Atlas. I've talked about that. And I'm a big fan of something called Landsat Explorer app. And that gives you, and it's free, and you can just jump on there, and you've got some basic change detection tools where you can do some quick analysis on the fly and just get a bit familiar with, perhaps some geo AI ground imagery. But then I think from, what Amy's just talked about today, and I'll probably throw this out to Amy, I think AI assistants sound like perhaps the perfect place to start.
Yeah, they really are. They're coming through in some of the smaller applications like Survey 123 now. I think Pro, something else is also in beta, but it's being expanded day on day. But I do want to supplement that with, in order for you to actually play around with the assistants and the AI in your ArcGIS online space, you do have to opt in. And by default, you are not opted in. So as a standard, everyone, if you haven't clicked that button, you are opted out. So none of the content that you're working with will have that AI option. So if you are interested or not interested, make sure that setting is turned on or off.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that in one of the sessions actually during the AI summit that it's an opt-in. So that's a good point. I'd forgotten about that. So yeah, good one. Okay, first question comes from Jamie. Will field maps and Survey 123 be merged like Workforce has been with field maps? I think that's quite possibly an Amy question.
I think so, definitely.
I'll happily answer that one. So Workforce is being migrated into field maps as we've seen it coming through in tasks, and that is being released very imminently in the mobile app in October, so you'll get to play with that. But there is no current plan to incorporate Survey 123 into field maps. We are working on making sure that there's parity between the two. So things like signatures are available, will be available in both, and oriented imagery available in both, tasks available in both. But ultimately, they are different audiences and they will remain separate. But looping back around to the theme of the UC this year, which was integrating everything everywhere, both of these applications are starting to see more of that integration, both with different data types, different applications outside of the Esri space, but more importantly, as well as with each other. So there is that pathway to make sure that they're working together instead of becoming one. If that makes sense.
Yeah, good reminder on the audience piece as well. A lot of us will work with both, but there are audiences that very strictly or very predominantly work with one or the other because of the workflow that they require, right? Yeah, awesome. Excellent. Thank you, Amy. Next question is from Leslie. Can I extract information from point cloud analysis or LiDAR analysis? Well, that's a Linda question. So over to you, Linda.
Thank you. And absolutely, yes, you can, Leslie. This is one of the things I was quite excited to see at UC. There have been some new models that have been released. And again, I can't stop banging on about ArcGIS Living Atlas. Those resources are free and you can download them to get started. Also, there was a fantastic presentation done by Oricon where they showed exactly that in action and doing that volumetric analysis. So yeah, we're happy to share some links with you following on from this about that particular model.
Yeah, and good point as well. There was lots of use cases in the plenary and some of the other sessions and things like that as well. So definitely worth having a look at those. Might grab some of those links for the individual recordings as well when we have them. Excellent. Thank you very much. Next question is from Jinghan, and that is, what happens if I use a model and the results are not what I expect? Can I use that as a foundation for retraining? Well, there's another Linda question. So that's
Yes,
you,
I'd
Linda.
like to answer that one. Absolutely. And this is where I think, again, we've got to just validate and test what we use and how we apply it. So I would say always start with the foundation models that are available on ArcGIS Living Atlas. I think I should get $1 for every time I say that. But so you start with those foundation models, and that's why they're called a foundation model, because that's where you begin. And check what imagery they were trained against. You know, what was that in America? Was it here in Australia? Was it somewhere else in the world? And was that trained against RGB imagery or near infrared? Was it 10 centimeter? Was it satellite? Was it drone? All of these things are important. And then get stuck into retraining it. And another tip I would give you here is start small. So pick perhaps a 1K by 1K tile or area and reach or to take that training wizard that I spoke about. And literally, you have to identify every single one of those objects or features in that 1K by 1K tile. If you miss one, the model gets confused because it's like, it starts thinking, well, why did you digitize that roof and not the other roof? Why is that a roof and that's not a roof? And then you actually lower the accuracy. So a little tip here is get a little, sample area. Absolutely identify every single object that you can see in that area, retrain the model. You might have to go through a few of these iterations before you come out with a really solid result. And then once you've got that little training sample, that's when you spin it up at scale. And that's when you run it across perhaps an entire, state or whatever your AOI is. But definitely do those proof of concepts first, do that retraining first, and make sure you pick every single thing in that image. Otherwise it gets confused.
Right. And again, you've stepped into territory there that traditionally was, you know, in a very specialized field, or sets of people would have been able to do it. Now it's becoming easier to do it, right? So developing models is not something people can, you know, may have thought they would find themselves doing or capable of doing, and so on, right? And so there are a few foundational things there around, you know, the terminology around training a model, etc. That it takes time, etc. But having that foundational model as your starting point actually takes a lot of that pain out from the beginning, and then you can start to tweak it as needed, right?
It's so much about the terminology, and that's where I think even with ChatGPT, you'll be like, you know, I want to do this. What's the GIS term for it? And then you get that
Right.
term, and then you know that's the tool or that's the language. I'll then carry on searching, and it's just those pointers. It even speeds up people like myself, you know, who've known it for years, but you know, I can just quickly say, summarize this for me.
Right. Yeah. Jumping in and just, you know, refamiliarizing yourself with some terms you haven't used in a couple of years. It's like, oh yeah, that one. Yeah, it's great. I've a question here from Ben, and I think that's our Ben Gann. Hello, Ben. Does the AI assistant in Survey 123 work when working offline in a remote location? Someone had to ask the offline question, didn't they? Amy, I'm going to throw that to you. She's smiling.
This is quite a curly question. Thanks for sending this through, and I will need to validate my answer.
That's it.
So I think at the moment it might not be coming out in the beta versions, but there's definitely a roadmap to make sure that, I mean, Survey 123 is meant to work offline, and there's quite an important functionality. So I believe that should be on the, or is on the roadmap for that app. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. Then you're in trouble later. All right. I think this is probably the last question we have time for, so just got it in under the line. So just the way I'm looking at it. Question from Purak. Hello. Is Esri developing its own bespoke AI models tailored for geospatial applications, or are you leveraging open source models like GPT for your AI capabilities? Oh, this is a good question. Who would like to take this one? So Amy or Linda? Who wants to take a stab? Go for it.
And then perhaps Amy can fill in some of the gaps, because again, like I keep defaulting back to Geo AI. So when I talk about those kind of models and how we use that, that's where just remind me of the question. Let's pop that in.
Yeah, sorry, I popped it into your chat as well, so you can see it.
Yeah, there we go.
Are we developing our own bespoke tailored one?
Yeah, thank you. So we are working with people. We are working with people. So this is where there are a lot of models right now around America and particularly New Zealand. And this is where we're partnering with people like Geoscience Australia or other people who will create models. We also have internships happening here at Esri Australia, where one of the focus areas we're going to have a look at is retraining some of our own models as well against Australian data. But this is definitely something where we don't want to own that. We're probably going to partner. There are so many people already doing this in that space who do it very, very well. And we will absolutely partner with those people, you know, bring their content, bring their models in. And this is where it gets a bit interesting, because some of those models are quite proprietary. They've been training them for years. They have spent a lot of money to invest in that model. So perhaps if these partners don't want to share the model directly, what they will share with us, and will come into things like the content store, is the outputs from that model. So keep an eye out for something called Content Store that's also coming, that we're going to start bringing as much Australian data into. But yeah, so it'll be a mix of, perhaps we won't do it all ourselves. We'll definitely do some research around it and explore it from a software perspective, but we will be partnering with people who do this, you know, every day is their bread and butter. And Amy, is anything in AI assistance? I don't know.
So the AI assistants are, from my understanding, trained with common resources and access, but it is becoming a Esri AI tool. So it is that based on that large language model, and it is, I think it is client side. So there's no, you can read more about that from the trust and the transparency cards as well. But all of those aspects where we might be learning from open access information and everything else like that. But ultimately, once it comes into Esri side, it's stop learning. And what you see, anything you put into it, doesn't go back into the learning model.
Yeah. And I will just add to that as well, the deep learning, the pre-trained models, each of them has information about how they were developed, the methodologies, etc. And again, it's all expert developed, right? So they've been partnering with experts and are experts themselves all along the way. So it's
So the ones
been
that we've
developed.
got available have all run through Esri Analytics team and all been endorsed and validated and checked. And that's why we call them foundation. It's a starting point, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, we have experts internally and we partner with experts externally. And yeah, that's how we're going to get it done.
I think again, it
Brilliant.
wraps back up to that integrating anything anywhere. And yeah, that's big part of what we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much. Okay, that's enough because otherwise you're going to lose your voices. So I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for those questions. Thank you again, Amy and Linda. I know it's been a crazy few weeks, so thank you for taking the time to collate this content for us. Do you want to say anything before I jump into my official wrap up?
Big thank you for everyone joining and thank you for sending me to UC.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you
Awesome.
very much. I think we're all passionate curiosity brings us all here together today, and I think just keep holding on to that and do your best work.
Yeah, I think you're just essentially saying we're all a bunch of GIS nerds, and I love that. Okay, so a reminder of how you can provide any questions or comments or feedback, etc., that you may still have. So when we wrap up today's session, you're going to see your usual survey pop up. We would really love your feedback. We do use it. Any final questions you have, it's a good place to pop them in there as well if you think of it afterwards. So take the time to fill out that brief survey. It is quite short. Any further feedback or questions, if you do think of it after that as well, directly to events@esriaustralia.com.au. Now, our next couple of sessions, I should say, will have an imagery flavor, which is quite useful because we're going to look at imagery in the kind of lens of ArcGIS drone to map. We're going to look at some AI gotchas. So that will speak to a lot of that, what you need to do to get ready with it. So that's quite timely as well, Linda. And we're going to look at the management of our imagery as well. So I think that's going to be Gordon Summerling and Linda. I think you're going to be joining us again to bring us those topics. So
That's right.
if you wanted to jump into any of those topics, keep an eye on the usual webinar homepage for the registration details, or you can subscribe to the newsletter and we'll tell you when the registration is live. But finally, if you would like to rewatch this webinar, share it with people, etc., the recording will be up on the webinar page shortly as well. Thank you again, Amy and Linda. Thanks to you, all of you, for joining us. And we look forward to having you along again for our next Directions Live online.